discovered a hidden secret under her boat that transformed my grandson's fear into inspiration. Lily stepped out of her modest cottage, squinting against the sun that beamed over Booth Bay Harbor. The salty breeze wrapped around her as she scanned the dilapidated shape of their old boat, half buried under weeds and memories. Her heart ached with a longing to connect with Ethan, who had become a shell of the curious boy he once was, since his father walked out. Today she resolved to face the stubborn knots of her own despair and anxiety, convinced that pouring effort into the boat might unlock something buried deeper inside them both. With a hesitant smile, she summoned Ethan, who hovered at the door, tucking his hands into his pockets, shy and reluctant. "Come on, buddy. Let's make it our summer project." As they spent hours scraping away the barnacles of neglect, anxiety twisted in Lily's gut. She feared every glance at Ethan, who flinched under her gaze as if he bore her insecurities. Doubt flooded her mind. Was she enough? Would her efforts mean anything to him? When she caught him staring at the ground, there was such a weight in his silence. What if she couldn't reach him? Would he ever feel safe without a father? The sun dipped lower as their persistence unveiled a creaky compartment beneath the floorboards. A thrill crawled up Lily's spine. Could this be a sign? A family legacy waiting to be rediscovered? The flashlight beam flickered over a collection of vintage letters and a worn journal, its cracked spine whispering stories of adventure and resilience. She felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this was the bridge she needed to mend their fractured connection. "Ethan, look!" She offered the journal to him, her voice wrestling with anticipation. His eyes widened, the light catching the uncertainty in them. As he opened the journal, hesitance colored his voice. "I don't know if I can read this." But as he voiced the words, the stories of their great-grandfather sprang to life, tales spun with courage against a backdrop of raging seas and prejudices that once suffocated dreams. With every word, the grip of his anxiety slackened slightly. Lily observed how the boy's posture began to change, how the urge to hide lessened with each tale of bravery. Yet every lingering silence seemed darker than the last. The enchanted feeling of discovery collided with dread when the booming voice of their wealthy neighbor resurfaced in her mind. Plans to claim the boat for himself, treating their cherished family heirloom as mere investment fodder. Lily's heart raced as the stakes rose. Would Ethan acknowledge the double threat of standing against the neighbor and confronting his own fears? She felt panic and desperation mix into a cocktail of emotion, her stomach twisting tighter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Eyes darting between the book and the window, Ethan faltered. The words of their ancestor thrummed in his ears, igniting a flicker of resolve. But the looming threat shattered the fragile empowerment, leaving him wrestling with fear. Would he embrace the stories of his great-grandfather, or shrink back into the shadows he had inhabited for so long? Would he stand up against the neighbor and reclaim what was his? As Lily watched her son transform yet again, the tension crackled in the air. Their unfinished journey surged with possibility, yet danger wound around them like the tides. The final line of the journal echoed, hauntingly clear. Is true courage about never feeling afraid? Or is it about facing fear with the wisdom gained from those who have walked the path before? In that moment, a churning storm brewed within them both, defining the critical choice waiting to unfold, leaving everything hanging by a thread, heart racing, on the brink of change. Ethan's fingers trembled as he traced the ink on the aged pages, while Lily watched, a blend of hope and anxiety fluttering within her. It was clear that he grappled with more than just the stories. They represented a legacy that echoed through time, challenging every fear anchored in his heart. Suddenly, the floor beneath them creaked ominously, shattering the moment of revelation. Lily's heart raced, not just from the sound, but from the looming decision their situation demanded. The neighbors' plans echoed in her ears, a reminder of the tightening noose around their cherished family history. Would they allow their legacy to slip through their fingers? Or could they reclaim it? "Ethan," she said cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. "These stories, they show us how strong our family can be. Your great-grandfather faced his fears. Think of what he achieved." He glanced up, confusion marred by a flicker of determination. "But we're not him. What if I fail?" The question hung heavy. It was more than a challenge of confrontation. It spoke to every unspoken doubt lurking in both of them. Lily leaned closer, the words of the journal igniting a spark in her own heart. What if failure is just a step toward success? What if courage is about taking that first step, even when you're scared? The silence that followed was thick with contemplative tension. Ethan's shoulders tensed as he looked back at the journal. The light of the setting sun filtering through the window, casting a warm glow on the faded pages as if illuminating their path. The stories of bravery started to shift something within him, unfurling threads of possibility against the backdrop of his fears. "What did your great-grandfather do?" he asked softly, almost as a confession of surrender to the potential of his own courage. Lily seized the moment. "He fought for what he loved, Ethan. He didn't let anyone take what was rightfully his. If we care about this boat, our family, we must fight to keep it." As the words rolled off her tongue, she felt the weight of her own fears lighten, shifting from anxiety to a newfound conviction. For so long she had struggled without direction, drowning in the inadequacies of her past. Now, standing with her grandson amid dust and shadows, something tangible emerged, a sense of unity and purpose that transcended their individual struggles. "Are you ready to join me?" she challenged, her heart thrumming in resonance with his uncertainty. Ethan's eyes brimmed with latent resilience. "I don't want to fail," he replied, a plea wrapped in a challenge. "Together we won't," she responded. "If we fall, we rise again. The important part is the fight." Lily watched as determination bloomed on Ethan's face, the remnants of silence replaced by a dawning light. It was perilous, facing the uncertainty not just of their neighbor's impending threat, but the emotional landscape of their own fears. But this burgeoning resolve was more than a chance. It was the very foundation of their relationship rebuilding towards the future. Ethan pulled the journal closer, scanning the words that had transformed in meaning. He seemed to be absorbing not just the tales of adventure, but the very essence of bravery and legacy. A bond being forged in the line between fear and strength. "Let's tell the neighbor that he can't take it," Ethan finally declared, a note of defiance in his voice. Lily felt a fresh wave of hope surge through her. They were not merely fixing a boat. They were reclaiming their family's history and shaping their resilience. But as she sensed the feverish determination building between them, the undercurrents of doubt still lurked in the back of her mind. What if their attempt to stand firm ignited a conflict greater than they anticipated? The tension swelled, echoing in the solemnity of the hour. With darkness creeping in, they began to plot their next steps, knowing the stakes would only increase. This was just the beginning of a bolder journey, one where fear could become their mentor instead of their master. As they faced the approaching night, Lily caught Ethan's eye. "What are we going to do first?" he asked, a thrill of excitement quivering in his voice. She thought about the confrontation looming just ahead, and realized the answer lay in one final question drifting between them. "Are we ready to face him?" Even as the clouds gathered outside, the storm brewing within them ignited a fierce unwillingness to retreat. setting the stage for an unfolding reality they could no longer avoid. The following morning dawned with an uneasy stillness that blanketed the town. Light crept through the edges of the curtains, revealing the outlines of clutter and memories scattered throughout Lily's modest home. Both she and Ethan lay awake, thoughts racing faster than the day ahead. Lily could sense Ethan's anxiety simmering beneath his otherwise composed demeanor. "Today feels different," he murmured, sounding uncertain yet resolute. She watched as he shifted in his bed, the quiet tension dancing between hope and fear swirling in the air, the remnants of their plans still hanging faintly like the scent of last night's ocean breeze. "Different how?" Lily asked, her voice hushed, still tinged with sleep but laced with encouragement. "I don't know. It feels like we're standing on the edge of something big. I might actually do it." His voice dropped, as if the act of confessing sent shivers down his spine. "It is big," she agreed, sensing that this moment as the calm before their storm was charged with transformative potential. "Facing our neighbor will be a pivotal moment, Ethan. But it's also an opportunity for you. An opportunity to prove to yourself that you can rise above doubt." He inhaled deeply, the determination etched beneath his brows, lending a fierce resolve. The journal had ignited something within him that seemed to flicker like a flame, daring to spark into a full blaze. "Let's review what we want to say," Lily suggested. "We need a strategy. Attack the problem, not each other." They spent the next hour crafting their approach. Conversation flowed between vulnerability and strength, with Ethan developing a clearer understanding of his emotions. He articulated every concern that raced through his mind, allowing Lily to probe deeper and to help him navigate through the fear tethered in his words. As they sipped tea and exchanged notes, each crossed-out phrase becoming a grasp at purpose, Lily marveled at how Ethan was unearthing hidden depths she hadn't realized were there. Just like the stories of their family's past, he was slowly beginning to stitch together the narrative of his own courage. After their session, mindful of the time, they decided to inspect the boat. The vessel sat at the dock, worn but proud, and for a moment they stood side by side, taking in its legacy. The sun glinted off the hull, and Lily felt an urge to share more about its history, solidifying their connection to it. "We should go under the deck," Ethan suggested suddenly, determination replacing doubt. "There could be something down there we haven't considered." Lily's heart raced at the suggestion, as overwhelming as the prospect of confronting the neighbor. What lay beneath the surface could hold secrets that transcended their current battle. With painstaking care they navigated the creaky wooden steps to the hull, the smell of salt and engine grease filling their lungs. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached to open the hatch, a portal to both the past and the unknown. As darkness engulfed them below deck, the flicker of a small flashlight their only guide, Lily sensed a shift in Ethan's demeanor. He was no longer just her grandson. He was stepping into a role as a defender of their legacy. "Look!" he exclaimed as they illuminated the corners of the forgotten space. Scattered among old nets and rusting tools lay a battered wooden box, its latch caked in dust, but resolute. "What do you think this is? Could it be more stories?" Lily's pulse quickened, a mixture of apprehension and exhilaration knotting in her stomach. It could be, or it could be more than just stories. Let's find out. As Ethan opened the box, anticipation tangled with tension between them. Inside, they found fragile documents, photographs, and mementos of a past unknown, yet deeply felt. Each delicate item held the weight of history, clues to further uncover their legacy and the strength coursing through their family line. But as she began to process what was laid before them, a shocking revelation washed over Lily. Could this discovery shift the course of their confrontation entirely? "Ethan, what if these hold the key to proving our family's claim?" The gravity of her realization weighed heavily alongside the promise of newfound hope. This could change everything. Ethan squinted in the dim light, the resolve in his eyes steeled further as they began to sift through the contents. Each item felt like a step toward reclaiming not only the boat, but all their intertwined dreams and fears. With newfound purpose flowing through them, both realized they were not merely confronting their neighbor anymore. They were weaving a life story filled with courage, resilience, and the chance to thrive against all odds. What else would they uncover as they delved deeper into this hidden trove? And how would these discoveries shape not only the coming confrontation, but also their destinies? The tension thickened in the air, leaving an electric anticipation for what lay ahead. Ethan's fingers trembled as he delicately lifted a faded photograph from the box, revealing a moment frozen in time. A family portrait taken aboard their old boat years ago. The faces were weathered and joyous, capturing an essence of unity that seemed a world apart from their present fears. Lily leaned closer, feeling the pull of nostalgia mingled with urgency. This was no mundane find. This image was a testament to resilience, illustrating a bond that endured trials and tribulations. "Look at how happy they are," Ethan said, his voice softer now, almost reverent. They didn't have grand dreams or a perfect life, yet they were thriving in their own right. Her heart swelled with recognition. It was true. The image was not just a relic, but a guiding principle. It whispered of hope in adversity, a legacy that demanded to be honored. As they continued to sift through the contents, each item felt alive with possibilities. A newspaper clipping caught Lily's eye. It detailed a sailing competition their parents had entered against all odds. Ethan's curiosity stirred. He scanned the article, eyes widening with understanding. They must have faced challenges, just like we do now. The realization dawned upon him like sunlight breaking through clouds. Their forebears had navigated uncharted waters, but they had done so with grit and determination. The weight of that legacy shifted something within him, a newfound clarity in his purpose. "Lily, do you think they felt scared when they confronted obstacles?" he asked, glancing up with a mix of trepidation and resolve. "Absolutely," she replied, her tone unwavering. But they didn't allow that fear to dictate their actions. They pressed on and embraced the fight, and... She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. "We must do the same." Ethan nodded, barely suppressing the anticipation bubbling in his chest. He was beginning to see that the fears he faced didn't define him. He could utilize them as fuel for courage. It was exhilarating and terrifying, but there was no turning back now. "What's next?" he asked, grasping the edge of the box as if it held the key to their next steps. Lily, sensing the urgency, felt her heart race again, but this time with purpose. "Let's bring these items back. Each piece we found will bolster our position when we confront the neighbor," she said decisively. "We're not only claiming our rights, we're reclaiming our story. Your story, Ethan." He straightened, channeling the resolve of those smiling faces from the photo. "Right. The past has shaped us, but it doesn't have to hold us back. We can approach this with confidence." With the battered box clutched between them, they ascended from the depths of the boat's hull. Each creak of the worn wood felt like a battle cry echoing through the air, a reminder of their journey and everything they were on the verge of reclaiming. Back on the dock, Ethan momentarily froze, the weight of what lay ahead saturating the air with tension. Questions flared in his mind. Would his neighbors recognize the significance of their family's history? Would they respect the convictions fueling his voice? "Lily, what if they dismiss us?" he wondered aloud, uncertainty creeping back in. "Then we'll stand firm," she replied, eyes steady and vivid. "We have truths on our side, Ethan. Written in these documents is a legacy they can't ignore. Plus, we have each other." The connection they forged through that understated promise steadied him further, a tether in the storm. As they departed the dock with their newfound treasures, A resolve sprouted in Ethan's heart, intertwining with the anticipation of looming confrontation. He felt ready to meet the challenge head-on, buoyed not only by their discoveries, but by the very essence of who he had become throughout this process. Still, a shadow of doubt lingered, reminding him of the uphill battle they would face. Would the courage he harnessed withstand the pressure of confrontation? And in that moment, as they turned toward their home, they could not shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning. A defining moment that would reshape not only their destinies, but the very fabric of their legacy, bound by history, yet looking toward the future. What further revelations awaited them in the confrontation? And how would the weight of the past continue to shape Ethan's courage in the face of adversity? As they treaded up the path leading back home, Ethan felt an electric thrum of energy coursing through his veins. Each step felt deliberate and powerful, a manifestation of all the emotions swirling within him. Fear, excitement, determination. He navigated the familiar landscape with fresh eyes, each ordinary detail transformed into a symbol of his potential. "Do you think they'll really listen?" he questioned, his voice barely above a whisper. Doubt stalked him even as he burned with resolve. Lily sidestepped a gnarled root, her gaze unwavering. "They might have to," she replied. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about honoring our family's legacy." Her unwavering confidence anchored Ethan, but ripples of uncertainty still clawed at him. Would these revelations be enough in the face of opposition? Arriving home, he carefully set the box on the table. Each artifact inside it radiated significance, clinging to their past in a way that felt strangely reassuring. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter from the photograph, urging him on. He pulled out the newspaper clipping again, now with more intensity. The article chronicled a sailing competition that had pushed their parents beyond their limits. The competitors had been fierce, the stakes high. Did they hesitate? Did they consider retreat? Ethan couldn't imagine it. The photograph showed how proud they were to seize that moment. "What if I put together a presentation?" he proposed suddenly, excitement bubbling. "We could outline our family's history, showing the risks our parents took. It's all there in the documents, the articles, and the photos." Lily beamed at him. "That's a brilliant idea. Visual storytelling can be so powerful. But remember, it's not just about what was done. It's about our courage to speak up and continue their legacy." Her words sparked a fire deep within him. Ethan felt a shift. The fear he had clung to began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of empowerment. He had always been a quiet observer, hesitant to voice his opinions. But now? Now he wanted to be a beacon of the very essence of his family's spirit. They spent the next several hours reinforcing their presentation, piecing together fragments of their family's past with exuberant collaboration. Ethan pored over the records, and with each selection, he discovered more about himself, his own values, aspirations, and resilience. In the quiet moments, while Lily sketched out outlines and timings, Ethan allowed himself to reflect. What did he want from this confrontation? Respect? Validation? More than that, he craved to align with the legacy that now felt like a tangible weight on his shoulders. He hoped to emerge not merely as a recipient of his family's legacy, but as a protector of it. The night wore on, transforming the familiar comfort of home into a launch pad for his ambition. The past, once a mere reflection of what was lost, now felt alive with possibilities. The weight of history no longer felt burdensome. It was a foundation. As they wrapped up, exhaustion settled in, but Ethan relished it. He was fatigued from growth, not defeat. He turned to Lily, a determined grin spreading across his face. "They won't dismiss us. We're armed with truth and conviction. Together we'll face whatever they throw our way." But even as he spoke, a shadow of doubt wove through his heart. Could he maintain this courage in the decisive moment? Would he falter, or worse, succumb to the very fears he sought to conquer? The confrontation loomed ahead, and the thought both thrilled and terrified him. Tomorrow they would take their stand, and with each passing second, the tension felt more palpable. What surprises awaited them in the face of their neighbors? The fabric of their family's legacy was about to be tested in the crucible of conflict. Ethan awoke to the unsettling silence that enveloped his room, the kind that weighed heavily on his chest. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the clutter of papers strewn across the table, remnants of last night's fervent planning echoing in his mind. Yet, despite the empowerment he'd begun to feel, an invisible hand squeezed around his heart, reminding him of the stakes. Today would not just be a presentation. It would feel like an execution of their family legacy. As he moved through the motions of getting ready, he caught a glimpse of his reflection. The boy he saw felt different, hardened by determination but still flickering with doubt. The merging of these identities challenged him. Could he channel this anxiety into something powerful? Lily arrived shortly after breakfast, her vibrant energy cutting through the dread that threatened to engulf him. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice bright with anticipation. "Ready or not, we have to give it our all. There's no backing down now." Their rehearsal felt like an intricate dance, each slide transitioning into the next with grace. As they prepared, Ethan's anxiety shifted into focus. The artifacts and anecdotes from their parents' past, once mere memories, transformed into critical elements of their speech, tangible proof of what they stood for. They pored over every detail, honing their message until it felt like a living entity, eager to escape onto the world stage. But as they stood in front of the backdrop of their family history, doubt crept in again. What if the weight of history was too heavy for others to see its significance? What if their neighbors dismissed them outright, reducing their determination to artifacts of nostalgia? "Ethan, look," Lily interrupted his spiraling thoughts. "The people we're facing today are part of our history too. We're not just presenting facts, we're invoking an emotional connection. Remember, our family's story is their story too." Her words ignited a flicker of courage within him. He realized then that this wasn't merely about fighting for recognition. It was about sparking a shared recognition that bridged past and present. As they reached the location, the tension became palpable. Neighbors gathered in small clusters, speaking in hushed tones, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The air crackled with unshared hopes and old grievances. He could feel it wrap around him, squeezing tightly. Lily placed her hand on his shoulder, grounding him in the moment. "We're in this together. Just speak from your heart." Ethan nodded, taking a breath that seemed to expand his chest against the weight of expectation. As they approached the front of the crowd, he felt the electric charge of their collective gaze. In that instant, something inside him shifted. The stakes penetrated deeper, a commitment to honor his family, to confront the past, not with fear, but with conviction. He stepped forward, notebook in hand, but suddenly felt the words forming in his chest rather than on the page. This was more than presenting their family history. It was a call to everyone present, an invitation to discover their own stories reflected in those flickering artifacts. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to share something that binds us, something we must reclaim together." As those words filled the air, Ethan's voice gained volume and strength. The crowd, once mere observers, leaned in, intrigued. In this moment, fear wavered. It became a distant memory, eclipsed by purpose. But suddenly, someone from the crowd interjected, a familiar voice that bore a wounding challenge. "What makes you think your history matters to us?" Ethan's heart raced. This was the pivotal moment, a test of his resolve. The room held its breath as reality settled around him. Could he respond? Could he connect this legacy to their everyday lives? He met the gaze of the questioner, determined. I believe it matters because our legacy doesn't exist in isolation. It's woven into the fabric of our community. When we forget that, we lose part of ourselves. As he spoke, he felt another electric surge, a realization that this stand was more than about their family's history. It was also about their unfolding narrative. What would they choose to become? A silence enveloped the crowd, mixed with a sense of anticipation. He would have to navigate this confrontation with care, revealing truths not merely from documents, but from shared human experience. The air was thick with uncertainty, and with that uncertainty came both fear and exhilarating possibility. Would he be able to pull the community together in this moment of reckoning? Ethan's heart pounded loudly. The question of his childhood lingered in air. The time had come to face the very fears he hoped to conquer. Ethan struggled to find his footing amidst the silence, the weight of his own conviction urging him forward. The discontented voice from the crowd echoed in his mind, feeding into the existential dread that had accompanied him since childhood. Why should they care about his family's history? It was an uncomfortable question, yet one that forged a path for exploration. I believe it matters because our legacy is a reflection of who we all are. It binds us together. He inhaled sharply, drawing strength from the truths hidden within him. With each word, he peeled back layers of uncertainty, hoping to reveal insights that could resonate. Every one of you has stories worth telling, narratives intertwined with ours, building a foundation of resilience and growth. He observed some faces soften and others furrow, the palpable tension shifting slightly as the crowd processed his intentions. Determined not to back down, Ethan pressed on, feeling the weight of hesitance lift just enough for a spark of courage to enter. Imagine if we shared our struggles together. Imagine reclaiming our identities as a collective. What could we create? The question hung in the air, a thread weaving through the barriers. Ethan felt exposed, but invigorated. Perhaps it was time to dig deeper within himself and the community. What had they lost, and what could they still recover? He caught Lily's eye, her encouraging nod fueling his resolve. He was not just shadowboxing with doubt. This was a chance to dance with vulnerability. Suddenly the energy shifted again as someone from the back shouted, "What about the pain? The division your family caused?" The voice cut through the room like a cold blade, igniting a defensive instinct within Ethan. He wanted to push back, to deny the validity of that hurt. But he knew better. Instead, he chose to embrace it. Direct confrontation could lead to deeper understanding. Pain exists in all paths of history. Ethan acknowledged, his voice steady. Including my family's. What we cannot do is ignore it. We can engage with that pain, own it, and reshape it into a story of healing. We can weave our experiences together to redefine our future. He recognized the shift in atmosphere, a subtle crack in the walls people had built around their perceptions. Ethan took a calculated step forward, letting the weight of his words settle. Let's talk about those narratives of pain. When we acknowledge our shared hurts and triumphs, we create an authentic narrative. That's when healing begins. Silence morphed into murmurs of agreement, eyes shifting towards one another, as if they were beginning to connect the dots of their histories. Just as this breakthrough seemed to solidify, another voice emerged. And how do you plan to do that? Though the challenge was stern, Ethan seized it not as a setback, but as an opportunity. This was an invitation to outline a journey, a chance to visualize the path forward. We start by gathering stories, our own, as well as those lost to time. Each story contributes to a larger tapestry. I envision workshops, community dialogues. It could be a campaign where we finally listen to one another, share our fears and hopes. The idea faced silence momentarily, but then he saw it. A subtle movement through the crowd, nods forming amongst tightly knit groups. Feelings of empowerment surged through him, igniting a newfound resolve. This was no longer just about his family's history. It was no longer about mere artifacts. It was about creating a platform where everyone's voice had the opportunity to resonate, where shared paths could forge a path into the future. Ethan stood taller, embodying the essence of what he wished to create. The divide wasn't insurmountable. As he glanced over the assembled faces, he felt the weight of his own resolve emerging. A leader did not merely speak, but listened, inviting others to participate in the dialogue. He raised his voice once more. Let's build a space where our stories intertwine. Together, we can turn our histories into a legacy of unity and inspiration. In the following moments, as faces transformed from skepticism to cautious curiosity, he knew it was only the beginning. The momentum had shifted, but the challenge ahead remained formidable. How to navigate the complexities of his vision would require more than just ambition. It would demand authenticity, vulnerability, and unwavering determination. As he stepped back, a realization dawned on him, that his confrontation with fear had sparked something far greater. Now the moment of truth was shifting from him to the crowd. Would his call for connection be embraced, or would history continue to fracture them? The profound silence that followed harbored whispered promises, but his heart thudded ominously as it became clear. The true work was just beginning. Ethan left the gathering that night with a subtle tension in his chest. The spark he felt on stage had ignited a sense of purpose, yet shadows of self-doubt trailed behind him like an unwanted cape. As he walked home through the dimly lit streets, he replayed the faces he saw, the way their expressions shifted, how some eyes shone with promise, while others remained entrenched in skepticism. The duality of hope and uncertainty weighed heavy on his mind. He couldn't deny that the story-gathering initiative was a step towards something bigger, but the enormity of the task loomed like a storm cloud. It would require trust he knew could be fragile and easily shattered. How could he build that trust with a community that had reason to distrust him and his lineage? These thoughts collided in Ethan's mind, palpable and pressing. Arriving home, he settled into his favorite chair, the creaking wood impossibly comforting. He wanted to rest, but sleep evaded him as he immersed himself in journals and books, seeking inspiration, studying the dynamics of community healing. He found himself drawn to stories of people who overcame insurmountable odds, often stemming from shared vulnerabilities. Those narratives sparked something in him. Perhaps they were his model, a framework from which to build. Days passed, filled with turbulent emotions and quiet determination. Each morning Ethan found himself walking the neighborhood, speaking with friends, exchanging snippets of history, failed expectations, and unfulfilled dreams. The more connections he forged, the clearer it became. The past loomed as a thick fog, distorting the paths ahead. One early afternoon, while sitting in a small cafe, he overheard a group discussing the rift between longtime residents and newcomers. Their pain echoed his own, a familiar lament of isolation stemming from unaddressed grievances. A wave of inspiration surged within him. This was the perfect opportunity to dive deeper into what motivated the community. He took a deep breath and decided it was time to act, to confront the fear that had previously held him captive. Ethan pulled out a napkin, jotting down ideas for a series of informal gatherings. He would invite people to share their stories in a space that felt safe and open. That willingness to be vulnerable was his lighthouse guiding him through uncharted waters. Each gathering must start with one defining question. What binds us as individuals in this shared journey? With a sense of urgency, he reached out to friends and local artists who could contribute to the narrative gatherings. People who could facilitate conversations and encourage expression through art, in a way their community might embrace. Each connection he made fortified the network he was constructing. But with each planning session, doubts lingered. Would the community respond? Was this enough to break down the walls of division? These questions circled his mind like vultures waiting to pick apart his hope. Yet, in that embrace of fear came newfound clarity. Perhaps weakness could fuel strength. Instead of combating unease, he would invite it into the dialogue, weaving it into the very fabric of their gatherings. As the first meeting drew near, on the horizon of his thoughts stood a new realization. He was not alone in this. It would take a collective effort, a genuine embrace of all that had been lost, and the shared resilience to move forward. Standing in front of a mirror while preparing for the first gathering, Ethan searched his reflection for a moment, tracing the contours of uncertainty while recognizing the resolve sparking within him. In a last moment of reflection, he recalled a lesson from his early childhood. Teamwork does not mean sacrificing individuality, but rather harmonizing different melodies into a powerful chorus. With that realization, his determination crystallized. His heart raced as he approached the venue, but as the doors creaked open, a wave of vulnerability washed over him. Not fear, but a certain exhilaration. He stepped into the room filled with possibilities and uncharted connections. This would be no easy task, but the journey had begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. However, as Ethan greeted the early attendees, a figure approached him, not someone he expected to see, and the air shifted. Her presence was commanding, reminiscent of the ghosts of the past he thought he had left behind. "Ethan," she said, her voice slicing through the buzz of conversation. "We need to talk about the legacy you're trying to create, and what you don't know." Ethan's heart sank at the sound of her voice. His mind surged with memories of unspoken animosities and unanswered questions, the weight of unresolved history pressing heavily upon him. Sarah, an influential figure in the community and a torchbearer of traditions long upheld, stood before him, a tilt of her head suggesting both authority and discontent. "What do you mean, what I don't know?" he stammered, an unexpected tremor snaking through his voice. He fought to mask his surprise, yet her eyes were an open book filled with unread chapters and hidden fears. "The stories you're bringing to light," she responded, her tone firm yet curious. "They aren't just trivial anecdotes. They're seeds that could grow or devastate. You tread on delicate ground, Ethan. You think you can rewrite the past, but the past doesn't go quietly." Ethan sensed the challenge she posed, but also felt the tug of her intent. "I'm not trying to rewrite anything, Sarah. I simply want to create a space for honesty, to start a dialogue." "Honesty?" She arched an eyebrow, a hint of skepticism flickering through her expression. "What you call honesty could ignite old wounds. Sometimes silence carries more weight than words." The atmosphere thickened with tension as other attendees filtered into the room, hesitant to engage in the brewing storm. Ethan's instinct pushed him to defend his convictions. "And what if we continue to let those wounds fester? Isn't it better to confront them?" Sarah's laugh was tinged with bitterness. "Oh, Ethan, the confrontation you envision isn't always a panacea. You may be aiming for connection, but this community has its scars. They're not just stories, they're the essence of who we are. They require time, trust, and understanding, not mere gatherings." Her rebuke hung in the air, the weight of it mingling with Ethan's resolve. The stirrings of doubt crept back in, threatening to anchor him to the ground. However, he refused to succumb to the unease. Instead, he swirled his coffee cup, gathering courage that had slowly seeped into his bones. "What do you suggest, then? We hide from our past? Keep whispering the painful tales? What's the alternative?" He shot back, emboldened by his own rising indignation. "Listen before you leap," she replied, folding her arms in contemplation. "Embrace the history, not just your version of it. Know what truly binds us. Not every voice speaks in harmony. Some scream, but others grieve." Ethan could feel the walls of his conviction shake. the clarity he clung to beginning to shimmer under the weight of uncertainty. Perhaps he lacked the comprehensive understanding he thought he possessed. He pondered her words while absorbing the shifting dynamics of the room, his vision of unity now riddled with potential pitfalls. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "How do I start? Where do I find that understanding?" "That's the journey, Ethan," she replied, her tone softening now, as if inviting him into her world. "It begins with listening, not just for what the words say, but for the silences in between. Bind the stories together, not with your narrative, but with an appreciation for theirs." There was no denying the wisdom in her words, yet it left him grappling with that raw sense of vulnerability. He realized that he had to mold himself anew, to expand his definition of connection and empathy beyond what he knew. "I'll do that," he finally asserted, determination rekindling in his chest once more. "But I need your help, your voice, your guidance. Will you share your stories, the ones that sit heavy on your heart?" At that moment, something in Sarah's demeanor shifted. The tension that had tethered them began to dissipate, revealing fissures of connection amidst shared vulnerability. "Perhaps we can find a way forward together. But understand this. You're entering the depth of our realities, past and present. It's profoundly transformative, but it's also treacherous," she cautioned, the weight of her experience echoing in the space between them. Ethan nodded, his sense of purpose hardening with each passing moment, igniting a new potential within him. He sensed a partnership on the horizon, but what would it demand of him? The birth of new understanding was riddled with risks he hadn't anticipated. The gathering would be a crucible, one that tested not just his leadership, but his very sense of self. As he branded this path into existence, he felt the stirring of something deeper, an unwavering call to embrace the unpredictability of human connection. Yet as the time for the gathering would soon arrive, Ethan couldn't shake the sense that he was still on the precipice of greater challenges to come. What deeper truths lay under the surface, hidden in the stories yet untold? With a heart full of newfound determination yet heavy with uncertainty, he braced himself for the journey ahead. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting slats of light across Ethan's room, illuminating the remnants of his preparation for the upcoming community gathering. The palpable energy of change and resolve had taken root in his spirit, yet the uncertainty still loomed like a shadow, nudging against his confidence. Today would be the reckoning, the moment when he would truly face the power of vulnerability, not just for himself, but for the community he longed to connect with. Ethan took a deep breath as he donned a simple yet intentional outfit. He wanted to convey his authenticity, embodying both conviction and approachability. As he walked into the community space where the gathering would unfold, the weight of anticipation hung heavily in the air. It wasn't just a meeting. It was an invitation to bridge the divides, to listen deeply, and foster understanding. Lily arrived shortly after, her comforting presence grounding Ethan in the emotional whirlwind that churned within him. "Remember, this is a space not just for you, but for everyone. Lead with your heart, and let that guide your words," she encouraged, sensing the nervousness that had coiled in his stomach once again. The room began to fill as neighbors trickled in, their initial hesitance palpable. Conversations buzzed quietly, debuting a mixture of skepticism and curiosity as they inspected the artifacts and stories Ethan had assembled. His pulse quickened at the sight of familiar faces, realizing that the success of this gathering extended far beyond his own narrative. This was their collective history. With the crowd settled, Ethan cast a glance around the room, then summoned the courage to stand tall. "Thank you all for being here today. We're not just here to talk about the past. We're here to find out what binds us together as a community," he began, his voice unexpectedly firm despite the fluttering beneath his ribs. He shared snippets of the artifacts they had unearthed, weaving together tales of bravery and resilience from his ancestors, alongside stories of his neighbors, those whose voices had been overshadowed by time and silence. Each word resonated, the experiences rippling through the crowd, fostering connections that had previously been obscured. Today, he continued, let's embrace the idea that our histories are intertwined. Our struggles, our achievements, our pain. It's time we begin to share our stories, unearthing truths that allow us to heal, to grow, and ultimately, to unite. Encouraged by the supportive nods and the glimpses of curiosity lighting up around the room, he felt what had once been uncertainty morph into excitement. He opened the floor to dialogue, urging people to share their own experiences, testing the waters of vulnerability. As one neighbor stepped forward, words poured out. A recounting of unforgiving struggles with family and community expectations. The generational weight carried through forlorn years. Vulnerability draped over the room like a warm blanket as others began to share, opening up avenues for deeper reflection. Each voice added layers to the collective tapestry of their history. Differences and commonalities danced together under the bright lights of honesty. But then Sarah's voice broke through the air, heralding a new wave of contemplation. What happens when our stories don't align? When our truths clash? Her tone bore the weight of experience, and Ethan felt the air shift around them. I believe that's where the real work begins. Ethan responded, hesitant yet determined. Discomfort can be an avenue for growth. Let's navigate those tensions together. It's in this shared journey that we find our strength and understanding. A palpable energy surged through the room as people began to nod in agreement, the foundations of guardedness beginning to dissolve. They were ready to confront the fragility of their legacies and grapple with the truths they'd buried for too long. As the gathering flowed through sharing, Ethan caught a glimpse of mutual recognition in the expressions around him. The lines of division were blurring, replaced by an emerging curiosity to understand one another deeper. There was power in vulnerability, he realized. A transformative force that could unearth latent possibilities. Hours faded into moments, conversations evolving into connections more profound than any single story. By the end, laughing and crying filled the air. A symphony of humanity reclaiming agency in their narratives. The waiting doubts of the past felt subdued now, as if the stories exchanged had woven an understanding that could never be untangled. As attendees began to drift away, Ethan felt the warmth of collective empowerment, the realization that he had successfully led them to face their fears together. He had not only proved to himself that he could bridge their fragmented community, he had uncovered his own legacy of resilience and courage. Today, he hadn't just taken a stand for his family. He had opened a door for everyone. The weight of uncertainty had transformed into solidarity, blossoming into a genuine connection that echoed warmth and hope. Above all, Ethan had conquered the tumultuous tides of insecurity, emerging with newfound clarity and recognition of his purpose. He could channel his family's legacy into a brighter narrative, a narrative where healing and unity triumphed over silence and division. As he stepped into the afternoon sun, he felt lighter. The burdens of the past lifted, ready to embrace the future with a firm resolve and an open heart. The journey would continue, but today was a defining moment, showcasing the potential flourishing amidst the foundations of vulnerability. This is the moment to recognize your own power. If you've resonated with Ethan's journey, you need to subscribe now to this channel for more exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Don't hesitate. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help these messages reach those who need to hear them. Comment below with your thoughts on this incredible conclusion, or share your theories. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are ready to overcome their own fears and embrace their transformations. Don't wait even one more second.